드리고 있습니다. 여기까지가 저의 이 발표고요. 저희 마지막으로 저희 팀원을 소개해 드립니다. 현재 저희가 4명인데요. 1명을 채용하고 있고, 혹시라도 스위스 트레이드 앤 인베스트먼트 관련해서 일반적인 문의가 필요하시면 저희들에게 연락을 해주시면 될 것 같습니다. 또 마지막으로 제가 이주희 사장님, 이주희 대표님하고 인연을 간단하게 말씀드리고 마무리하려고 하는데요. 제가 2012년에 이모지 게임이 런던에서 본사를 스위스 루제르로 이전할 때 제가 전화로 인터뷰를 했었습니다. 근데 그때 이주희 대표님이 왜 스위스로 사무실을 이전하느냐고 물었을 때 스위스에서 사업을 하면 좋은 장점을 명확하게 알고 계셔서 저희가 그 인터뷰 내용을 내부적으로 스위스 글로벌 엔터프라이즈 저희 스위스 뉴욕 시장처럼 내에서 좋은 레퍼런스, 정말 테스트모니얼을 사용을 하셨습니다. 그래서 이제 이모지 게임이 글로벌 사업을 확장하시고 이제 사카도 창립을 하시고 오늘 또 이렇게 저희하고 함께해서 스위스 블록체인 산업을 홍보할 수 있는 이런 이벤트를 같이 할 수 있게 돼서 참으로 기쁘게 생각하고요. 오늘 유익한 세미나 되시기를 진심으로 기원하겠습니다. 감사합니다.
네, 미국정 대표님 저에 대해서 소개까지 해주시고 너무 감사합니다. 참고로 제가 이제 저희 이모지 게임스를 코-파운딩하는 창립자이기도 하고요. 저희가 이제 저희 이모지 게임스가 스위스에서 오퍼레이션을 한 지가 본사인데 10년이 다 돼가거든요. 그래서 저희들은 아주 사실 만족을 하고요. 이제 개인적으로 회사를 경영하는 입장에서 정말 한국은 굉장히 빨리 변하고 역동적으로 변하지만 저희가 스위스에 있으면서 정말 좋은 거는요. 꾸준하게 정말 20년, 30년이 정말 후딱 지나간다는 정말 안정적으로 비즈니스를 할 수 있다는 그런 장점이 있는 것 같습니다. 네, 그리고 당연히 텍스나 이런 여러 가지 인프라가 굉장히 이제 정부에서 주는 혜택이 굉장히 많이 있습니다. 네, 다음 순서로는 저희 유르 발텐슈테르가 저희 변호사님께서 스위스 정부와 금융감독원, 스위스 금융감독원 팀마의 가상자산 규제 프레임워크에 대해서 발표를 주시겠습니다. 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
So, hello everyone from my side. Thanks very much to you for the kind introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here, and special thanks to Chase Steel for making this happen. It's a great pleasure that we have the opportunity to present actually the crypto framework of Switzerland here. I'm privileged to say that I've been in Seoul for the topic of cryptocurrencies for the second time now. We've been here 2.5 years ago, before the pandemic, and it's good to see that we have the chance to meet in person again. Okay, I brought you a few topics with me that I would like to go through. It's about Swiss ecosystem and regulatory approach in crypto. How do we deal with these new chances as well as new risks, of course, in the crypto space? Token classification, and we have a little highlight on NFTs, how to classify the NFTs, what are the regulatory requirements for it. And anti-money laundering, of course, if we exchange items of value, there are some risks. It could be abuse for money laundering or sanction violation. Token classification, already mentioned. Licensing requirements is an important topic, and last but not least, a short regulatory outlook to give you some guidance how we deal with it in Switzerland and how we could continue. A few words about myself. I'm in compliance. My educational background is I'm a Swiss lawyer as well as risk manager and graduated in business administration. I'm working in compliance for more than 13 years. Actually, started with Rothschild Bank in Switzerland, in Zurich, and then moved on to various positions, such as risk legal compliance of Central Bank. Key milestone, of course, for me was building up the compliance department of Signum, one of the two first crypto banks of the world. So we learned a lot how to implement it from a compliance perspective. And I set up my own education at University of Applied Science in Zurich, where we teach compliance officer, auditors, as well as consultants in the field of crypto and blockchain. Yes, and and of course I'm here as an advisory board member of JCPO. If you have a look at the regulatory landscape, how it developed in the last few years, it's quite amazing to see from 2014, where jurisdictions, regulators are very hesitant on this development, until 2021, where we see a lot of green on the map, which means regulators that are open to welcome crypto in their jurisdiction. What is the Swiss role in this? Swiss also belongs to these green countries. We have a technology-neutral approach, which means we actually do not care whether you use a decentralized system or a centralized system or any other system, as long as you fulfill the requirements. This is very helpful because we were not forced to create a new act or a new law in order to address cryptocurrencies, because since we're technology neutral, we say the same rules apply anyways. However, they did not fit precisely, of course, for the crypto field, therefore we had to do some adaptation of the current legislation. This is another slide then. Switzerland is ranked as a very innovative country. So we have technical high schools that are dealing with this topic, and in addition they're very open for innovation. Switzerland is considered as crypto-friendly, and we are regulated. Switzerland has a regulated approach in the crypto world, so there's not a lot going on in the DeFi sector, which is per se unregulated. The DeFi ecosystem rather takes place these days in Dubai, but we have a regulated approach, and we will continue that way, so it's a little bit less peaking on a short-term basis, but it's a more long-term oriented development. And as said, we adapt current law. This is a graphic from the Crypto Valley Venture Capital Association that shows how it developed. It all started back in 2013 with a company called Bitcoin Swiss. It was the first one that was founded in the Crypto Valley, and the game changer, of course, 2014 was Ethereum Foundation, who joined the Crypto Valley in Zug. There are amazing stories around when from one of our business partners who was hosting actually the 5 guys from Ethereum Foundation at his own place because they've been kicked out in their Airbnb. They couldn't afford it any longer, and he had to bring physical cash to pay the rent in advance for their office, because no one wanted to rent an office to those 5 guys from Russia in the age of 20 to 25. Actually he was offered, our business partner was offered to get Ethereum or Ether for a price of 70 cents, but he said he rather prefers to have cash. Unfortunately, therefore he's still working today, but we really enjoyed those stories. There's a book about it, and I'm sure one day there will also be a movie about that initial days of the Crypto Valley. Then it continued, and now we're in 2021, 2022. Also the 2 crypto banks, Signum and Seba, got their respective license, and it will develop. We don't know in which direction, but so far it looks that it goes forward on with the same speed as ever since. In Switzerland, in total, we have about 1,100 something companies in the crypto field, whereas at least half of them are located in the Crypto Valley, which is actually, I always find it very amazing, because Crypto Valley is in Zug. Zug is a village of about 30,000 inhabitants. So if you have a walk in Zug, you can actually walk from Ethereum Foundation to Cardano Foundation to Tezos, and you do that within a half an hour. This is really amazing. Therefore, it's a very good hub for companies to be there. Because of the stability, as mentioned by Monica initially, authorities are very open and friendly. If you need a document from authorities in Zug, you just go to their office during opening hours. and you don't have to take a number and wait or queue up. You just go in, you get what you want, you maybe pay $20 or $30, and then you walk out. So I had to organize 3 documents once, and I did it within a half an hour by just walking from one authority office to the next. I really enjoyed it. We have low taxes. This is a topic that Silva then will cover, so I'm not giving you any background information. He will do so. It's a great infrastructure, and maybe since the development in the crypto field is community-based, we talk about decentralized system with many different players. Maybe one of the most important factors is the community that was developed in the crypto area. There's a lot of events, a lot of people going there and exchanging some information. Someone once asked me, Jörg, can you recommend a book that I can read about blockchain and blockchain regulation? I said, if you read a book, it's already outdated, because until it's published, the crypto world moved on in the meantime. So it's best, of course, to exchange some information. There's a few key figures. Valuation of all companies in Switzerland in the crypto space, about 600 billion. 14 of these companies are unicorns. In total, hire about 6,000 employees. The top 50 hire about 1,000 employees. Not everyone is working in Switzerland. There's hardly any IT programmer that works from Switzerland because of the high labor costs. But it's a global system, it's a global development, therefore it doesn't really matter. These are the 14 unicorns in Switzerland. Of course, the Ethereum Foundation with over $400 billion in value is the biggest. What is the regulatory approach in Switzerland as an overview? So the Swiss Federal Council supports the development, which is of course very, very important that we have regulatory support, otherwise we couldn't do what we are actually doing. So the Federal Council even went to the Crypto Valley, had a presentation, talked about the topic, informs himself, and it is a regulated approach. He adapted the current law that we already have in place. We also implemented a few new license types to help crypto and fintech develop. So we have a supervisory authority, it's called FINMA in Switzerland. They partially delegated to so-called self-regulatory organization, and this is a unique point in Switzerland. You don't need directly be licensed by the supervisory authority. You can also get a so-called SRO, self-regulatory organization membership, which is a leaner level of regulation. And we distinguish between 3 token types. This is the overview. There are 3 different tokens that we classify. There is payment token, which is a means of payment. You buy a token, you're not really getting anything in return, to be a little bit blunt, except the hope that someone will pay you more in the future for this token than you paid for it. Of course, you can use it for payment. For instance, if you go for payment token Bitcoin. There are a utility token, which means give you access to a service. The payment token is regulated, we need to mention that, under the Anti-Money Laundering Act. And there are utility tokens which are not regulated, give you access to whatever kind of service, but usually have no payment functionality. And the third category, it's maybe the most interesting, is asset or security token. So you will not be under the Anti-Money Laundering Act if you transfer, but you need to do some investor protection, which means issuing a prospectus and other regulatory requirements. Why do I think this is the most interesting category? Because this is the field where we start to tokenize real assets. It just started. Actually, we're missing a proper marketplace, because a marketplace is regulated, it requires a license. But as soon as we have it, we can start tokenizing from art, for instance, or we could tokenize cars, boats, airplanes, space program. Maybe you can tokenize the education of someone, of a student, or the career of a celebrity. There are many, many options if you go in that direction. And this just started. So what is an NFT regulatory-wise in Switzerland? Actually, there's no own law about NFTs. It's not a separate category, it's technology neutral. So we only have those 3 token classification categories, and it depends how are the functionalities of the respective NFT. There's hardly any NFT that is a payment token because it should be fungible if you want to use it as means of payment, but there are utility token in form of an NFT, and of course there are security token in form of an NFT. And yes, it depends, so you have to have a look at it. It depends on key factors. It must be a physical item of value that is made tradable. It represents an asset, in particular a debt claim against the issuer. Someone issues the NFT, and then as soon as I get it, of course I have a claim against the issuer and say this is my painting and I can prove it by using my NFT. And if it is standardized and suitable for mass trading, if all these three factors are given, then we talk about a security token. So what was the Swiss approach if it comes to all regulatory requirements? How do we deal with the challenges of the crypto space? We adapted the law that is already in place, added a few things, actually in force since the beginning, 1st of February 2021 last year, and 1st of August, which is the Swiss National Celebration Day, where we put some new changes in force. The most important is that we said the ledger-based entry replaces physical signature. And this is, of course, an absolute important milestone that we had to do if we want to work with blockchain and use blockchain as a proper transfer of assets and value. In the past, we had to do some physical signature, which is not working at all if we don't talk about DLT and decentralized systems. The second one is we created an own category, registered value rights, that we use now as a legal term that is designed for token. And we adapted the Anti-Money Laundering Act in order to address the respective risks, because of course we do not want that fraudulent people are abusing our beautiful ecosystem for their own illegal purposes. So, all in all, this is the basis for tokenizing assets. As said, what is missing is a proper marketplace. So far, there are three companies that have the respective license in Switzerland. It's both crypto banks, Signum and Seba, and in addition, the Swiss Digital Exchange, SDX, as part of the Swiss stock market. But so far, it's just in the beginning. Licensing. What do I need to do if I want to play a role as a financial intermediary in the crypto space in Switzerland? So your license is your gateway to the financial sector. It's the door you have to pass. It depends, what kind of license you need depends on the service that you offer. So it's also here, it's very technology neutral. We don't care what kind of technology you're using, but please tell us what you're offering, what kind of service is it, and we can tell you what kind of license you need. There are three options. Either you do not need a license, such if you issue a utility token, or you need an SRO membership, self-regulatory organization. This is the leaner process, or you need to go for a full FINMA license. I just summarized for you the most popular licenses in the crypto space. Number one, of course, is the SRO membership, because it's a very lean, fast, and not very expensive approach. We service many companies that went that way. It is suitable for, I called it simple business models, but maybe it's not as simple. It's even for more complex business models are fine with an SRO membership. Very popular still is exchanges, crypto fiat and crypto. With crypto, I mean only payment or utility token, security token follows another regulatory requirement. Any kind of payment service, also custody, for instance, can be done with an SRO membership in an unlimited way if you follow the rules, segregated wallets on chain, and so forth. But this is a very good point. And ICO of payment token requires an SRO membership because it's under the Anti-Money Laundering Act. Yes. Also, issuing of a stablecoin, just to mention, is possible with an SRO membership. There is a little challenge in Switzerland, still existing these days, a little bit less severe as it was in the past, because if you take Swiss franc and issue a stablecoin on Swiss franc and you put these Swiss francs with the Swiss National Bank, you are forced to pay negative interest rates that your investors will not compensate you for. In the past it was 0.75%, now it's 0.25 because they still try to weaken the Swiss francs because in unstable situation as we're facing today, the Swiss franc is very popular as a safe haven. But as soon as there is positive interest rates from the Swiss National Bank, this business model with stable coins and Swiss franc will become way more popular. These SROs are, by the way, also supervised and regulated by the FINMA, so it's not self-regulation as such. It's not. It is indirectly regulated, I would say. So the process how to get my SRO membership. First, you of course establish your company. You need to find the right staff to do it. There's an AML officer required, anti-money laundering officer that ensures that you're not going to be abused by money launderers. You need an auditor and the respective policy. This process maybe takes 1 month. And then you go to the SRO membership, to the SRO. The biggest one in this field is called VQF. It's an association for ensuring quality in the financial industry. This application takes about maybe 2 to 3 months in total. Then you need to prepare your processes and you can go live. So overall, I would say 3, maybe 4, up to 6 months, and you're a regulated financial intermediary. The costs are around 25,000 Swiss francs, which is something between 25,000 and 30,000 US dollars. So a very lean and pragmatic approach. There is a new license, kind of new license from 2019, which is called the FinTech license, because with an SRO membership, you're not allowed to accept deposits from the public. This gap is covered with this FinTech license. It's called a banking license light, but you're not allowed to call yourself a bank. You can accept deposits from the public up to 100 million Swiss francs, 105 million US dollars in that area. And you can open a bank account with the Swiss National Bank. You can issue IBAN. This is a license that is also very popular in the field of crypto. Then of course you can go for a securities dealer. There are 2 of them issued so far, Signal Bank and Signal Bank. There are further license types, DLT. This is an interesting one. DLT trading facility. You could build up your security token marketplace with this license. So far no one has it. The license type was issued 1st of August last year. I don't know if there are any applications in the making of. Would be very interesting. We had a few requests, we talked about it, no one is really there to touch it because we don't know how long it takes, we don't know how much it costs, but of course it would be very good to be the first mover as soon as you get it. But usually you don't want to be the one who has to educate the regulator, to be a little bit direct. So we will see, but I'm sure someone goes for this license because it offers amazing options without being forced to bring in a lot of own capital. Of course, as a bank, you can do the same, but minimum capital is 10 million Swiss francs. But in practice, FINMA is usually asking for 15 to 20. Here, it starts with $500,000, so it would be I'm very excited to see who is the first one who gets this license. And you can go for a portfolio management license if you want to manage security token, payment token. You can manage with a standard self-regulatory organization membership. So in order to summarize, the regulatory situation in Switzerland is very international. Most of these companies are owned actually by people domiciled abroad. I would say about 70 to 80% from all over the world that come to the Crypto Valley. There are a lot of startups, but there are also some established players. The regulator offers a variation of license types, but of course it all depends on the service. And this is a little bit challenging sometimes also for us because we're working with entrepreneurs. And whenever an entrepreneur thinks about his business case, it has good ideas and wants to change change it, but you cannot constantly change your business case, otherwise you constantly need another license type. So since it takes quite a while to get the right license, you're a little bit stuck to the business case that you've chosen. And the crypto field, as you know, has an enormous speed and development. So this is more for those who consider it as a marathon and a little bit less as a sprint. But if you have the license, it offers you a lot of advantages. The banks, unfortunately, in Switzerland are quite cautious with cryptocurrency, also for reputational risks. There are just a few banks that offer services in this field. I think this will change. Also, we have these fintech regulated companies that can jump in. So if the traditional banks are not coping with this development, this is a little bit of Darwinism for me. If the environment is changing, either you adapt or you will lose over time. So if they're not adapting, I think other players will jump in and cover that gap. This is my personal opinion. There's broad support also by the greater public in Switzerland, so I hardly hear anything negative about crypto. Of course, some are making jokes about the Bitcoin chart or whatsoever, but the general public sees it as neutral or positive, which is of course very helpful. A few words about the risks as well, because this is my main topic. How can we prevent money laundering? On the blockchain, absolutely key for me, because if you have too many cases, too many people abusing our beautiful system for their own purpose, illegal purposes, this will of course cause more regulatory reactions that might bring down some business cases and make everything more expensive. This is what we want to avoid. Therefore, it's our job to do our homework here and do it to the best we can, so that we can avoid. Of course, it will never be 100% money laundering free, but how big is the problem? This is statistics from Chainalysis that says between 1 to 2% of the assets coming from an illicit source. Okay, that's not a lot. I don't know how the figures in the traditional world, to be honest, would be very interesting to compare here. But in total assets, it's between, since there is a lot of transactions in the crypto space, it's between 5 billion and 20 billion. So it's not nothing. We should take it serious. We should continue putting some effort in this area, but it's not the biggest problem from my perspective. Also, the Financial Action Task Force, which regulates compliance on an international level, which is actually a very, very good thing for the blockchain development, because we are decentralized, so we're very international. And we have with the Financial Action Task Force a regulator that also works on an international level. And this is super, super helpful. In the legal area or in the tax area, it's a little bit more complicated, because every jurisdiction is free to choose whatever rule they want to put in place. But in anti-money laundering, there is quite some harmonization. FATF cannot force you to do something, but they issue recommendation that you should implement in your local jurisdiction. If you don't do it, they will show up and blame you for that, or put you on the monitoring list, actually, as they did with Malta in the past, because of Binance not really following the rules. They had a KYC-free, they had a free identification threshold for their customer of 2 Bitcoin per day. So it was, of course, a quite high amount, and if you can do that every day without being identified, there's lots of rules. For money laundering, they reduced it to 0.06. In the meantime, and Malta was removed from the watch list of the Financial Action Task Force. Please.
Before we go on, before my memory goes away, speaking of the FTA, I'd like to have your opinion about status of NFT in Switzerland, because FTA, Financial Action Task Force, think this is collection. Okay. This.
Q&A 세션 문제가 있거든요. 그때 하시면 좋을 것 같아요.
이게 좀 할 때 했으면 좋겠어요. 네.
So.
So.
You can answer very quickly, because we have a Q&A session that we can answer with more
Just one pick, if I may.
마이크 잠깐 간단하게 그러면 일단.
So since we are on the topic of financial action task force linked to NFT, what is the legal interpretation of NFT in Switzerland? Because according to financial action task force, NFT is regarded as a collection. Okay, and this is not something that each government look at the money laundering aspect. That's my simple question.
Yes. I would like to answer it, thanks for that, I would like to answer it that way. Generally, the FATF can only issue a recommendation. So far, I'm not aware of a concrete recommendation to be transferred into local jurisdiction law. They issued a lot of papers and guidance. They're very at the forefront in regulating crypto. To what extent it will then be transferred in the jurisdictions which are a member of the FATF remains open. Switzerland is an early adopter. We usually just go for what the FATF says, what I enjoy, because I'm a little bit hesitant to advise on a project if I know in 1 year your business case will no longer be possible because we already changed the law. So I prefer to be ahead of the curve. If you consider development as a marathon, of course, if you go for fast money, this might not be the right approach. NFTs, from a Swiss perspective, of course, depend what is behind, what is the functionality, whether it is under the Anti-Money Laundering Act or not, which means that it is subject to the Financial Action Task Force. And but if it is, of course, it follows the standard regulation that they're recommended, respectively, be implemented in the local jurisdiction. So for us, NFT is not a known, from a Swiss legal perspective, NFT is not a known category. It depends what is behind, but could be a collective investment scheme. Then it follows another direction. Okay, good. Actually, the FATF started in 2018 to publish information about virtual assets, as they call it, and also the Swiss regulators started to publish this token classification. Initially, it was a reaction to the ICO boom back then, 2017, also in 2018. So, as said, Switzerland is an early adopter of the rules of the FATF. It's a regulated approach. For instance, we prohibited exchange of privacy coins because it's hardly possible to do any money laundering if you have no track record. It's a cooperative approach with regulator and the police. We have two reporting lines. One is to the police department, where we report money laundering. The other one is to the economic department, where we report sanctions violations. These are the two paths. So these are the indication for money laundering that we are using. There's a paper from the FATF as well that says guidance on red flag indicators is the title for money laundering. It's actually, if you go through, it's basically the same as in the traditional world. There's not a big difference. When I started with cryptocurrencies, back in 2017, I said, well, it's a little bit like physical cash, isn't it? So we can use the same rules. In the meantime, I know better. It's actually the opposite of physical cash. If I give you a banknote, you kind of know who I am, who gave you that banknote, but you have no idea where this banknote is coming from. And if I transfer you a Bitcoin, you actually do not know who transferred the Bitcoin to your wallet, but you have an idea where this Bitcoin is coming from, because there is a public ledger. If you don't have a public ledger, such as with privacy coins, this is not possible. So talking about risks in the crypto field, if you build up your company, of course you do not need to offer any possible service in the crypto space, so you can limit your risk, in particular with regards to money laundering and sanctions, by limit your business offering. I just listed a few elements here. Okay, first the overview, sorry for that. Okay, that was the first point. Then you adapt your internal rules. Identification of transactions with increased risk is important. 2 minutes? Yes, I'll make it. Okay, let's go a little bit faster. You can use this analysis tool that gives you an indication where is this coin coming from. These are 4 popular ones, but there are about 20 on the market. They're always improving their algorithm. So this is very helpful in the area of compliance. Or you can limit your business case, say, okay, we only allow exchange, we only accept coins that have a special origin, we only work with virtual asset service provider, with asset manager. There are different kind of options to reduce your risk. As said initially, I'm also a risk manager. For me, this is very important. That if you go into crypto, you don't say, oh, this is super risky, well, you can limit your business case, you do not need to offer everything. So let's jump this one. The challenges, of course, is know-how and training, and the regulatory development. There might be stricter law in the future. We want to create a fertile soil for further projects. This is the task of Switzerland. Technological development is a challenge, of course, and in particular the speed of the development. Of course, there are great chances as well. We want to build up an efficient financial marketplace, access for everyone to all sorts of investments. There shall be a broader range of investments. If you can invest in such a signal, for instance, tokenized the Picasso, all of a sudden a retail investor can invest in a Picasso, which is of course amazing. New asset classes, and we want to bring financial industry to the next level. We further want to adopt FATF recommendation, of course, and integrate crypto in financial regulation. And maybe in the future we will regulate DeFi sector. We're waiting for the FATF call that already said 3 times DeFi is not really DeFi and it should be regulated as well. We continually will hopefully have the support by Swiss government and strengthen Switzerland as a crypto hub. This is the regulatory outlook. Thanks very much for your attention. It will be a pleasure to stay in touch if you have any questions in this regard. We will make it in time, more or less. Thanks very much.
네, 방금 한 얘기 중에 그 스위스 레귤레이터를 굉장히 프렌들리하고 이제 실용적이다라는 말씀을 해주셨는데 제가 사실 그거는 100% 1000% 동감하는 얘기고요. 저희 회사도 핀마랑 이제 저희가 커뮤니케이션 할 때 제가 변호사를 쓰지 않고 직접 다 했거든요. 그만큼 이렇게 굉장히 이메일도 굉장히 보내면 바로바로 답변주고 일이 많이 없는 것 같아요. 네, 바로 친절하게 답변주고 그래서 굉장히 이렇게 아무든지 가서 정말 클리어한 비즈니스를 하기 원한다면 정말 스위스 거버먼트 레귤레이터 핀마나 이런 데라도 할만하다. 진짜 제가 직접 했습니다. 그래서 그런 점을 제가 좀 말씀드리고 싶었고요. 그 다음 순서로 저희 스위스
잠깐만 질문 안 하고 그냥 가는 거예요?
질문을요. 저희가 그 실반 텍스 관련해서 프레젠테이션 다 한 다음에 저희가 같이 Q&A 세션을 할 겁니다. 그때 질문해 주시면 좋을 것 같고요. 사실 굉장히 광대한 주제인데 하나는 레귤레이터리, 하나는 텍스 어카운팅이라서 사실 이제 2시간 만에 끝낼 수 있는 그런 세미나가 아닌데요. 어쩔 수 없이 저희가 이제 엑스트랙만 뽑아서 해야 되니까요. 그래서 저희가 다음 순서로 실반 암베아 씨의 그 텍스 관련한 스위스 텍스 시스템, 가상자산 텍스 시스템에 대해서 발표하시겠습니다. 박수로 반겨주시기 바랍니다.
안녕하세요. It's a pleasure to be here in Korea. Thanks a lot also to Facebook for having us here. I would like to talk to you about Swiss accounting and tax system, because this is the topic when people want to come to do business in Switzerland that they are mostly interested in, apart from, of course, the regulatory treatment that you just heard about. I will not focus on individual taxation. So if you have questions, if you want to move to Switzerland, you're very welcome, and also then to ask the question later and in the lunchtime. So I will go and put the tax and the accounting treatment, and then in the end I will give a little example of someone establishing an NFT platform in Switzerland, just to summarize all these different aspects that you have to consider when you run a project. To myself, I'm a Swiss tax expert. Since 5 years I've been working on blockchain. Before I was advising the financial industry, so been in the field of tax consulting for 13 years now. And at the moment 80% of my clients are crypto companies in the area of NFT, gaming, decentralized finance, token issuance, just all the aspects of crypto business. First, I would give like just a little introduction of Switzerland. I mean, you know, Switzerland is a rather small country, but it's also quite divided in different cantons. And this is important also for the tax system, because the tax system still, every canton has its own tax authorities and its own tax regime. It's pretty harmonized from the rules, but it's important to understand that tax authorities are a bit different in how they treat things, and also the tax rates are different. So what you see here are the companies of the crypto business, and you see a lot of companies are domiciled in Zug and in Zurich. And this is also because Zug has very low tax rates, it has a good community, and Zurich is also very popular for financial business. So this is normally where our clients want to go. Of course, if you want to go into another place, that's fine, but normally international business, they prefer to go either in Geneva or in Zurich. What is special in the tax regime in Switzerland? First of all, the tax code is rather simple if you compare it to other countries. It's written in a way that normal people should be able to read the code and understand it more or less. We have low income tax rate, so for a Swiss business in Zug, we're talking about 8.5 to 12% corporate income tax, all levels together. And we don't have CFC rules like in other countries. So if you have income from a subsidiary from abroad, you don't have to have minimum taxation in the other country. And very important for our clients is the good relationship with the authorities, especially also the tax authorities. So you can give them a phone call. There is one person responsible in the canton of Zug for crypto. There is one person in the federal tax authorities responsible for crypto. The same for VAT. And you know these people and you have regular discussion with them. And so if you have a new project, you can call them and discuss and what would be the way to tax it. So this is very helpful. Then there is also competition between the cantons. So they don't want to lose the company. So sometimes they reduce their tax rate so that they don't have, that all the companies are moving to another place. And also we have very good treaty network. When you go to a country like Panama, you will have no income tax, but you don't have double tax treaty. So that's not helpful. So if you are staying in Switzerland, you will have low tax rate, but you still are onshore, in an onshore country, and you can apply double tax treaties with over, I don't think it's about 180 countries, so a lot. Now, how do you set up a business in Switzerland? We have many different forms of legal entities. But for crypto, the most important 4 entities that everyone is using is corporation, limited liability company, foundation, and association. Corporation and limited liability company are very similar. Normally, limited liability is just a bit smaller, so for small businesses, because it only requires 20,000 francs capital. Corporation is for normal and big businesses. For the crypto industry, foundation and association has been used a lot. You might know Ethereum Foundation. A lot of DeFi projects are using associations. And the reason for this is that these type of entities, they don't have share capital, they don't have shareholders. So they are controlled by the foundation or by the members of the association. So it's very useful if you want to create a decentralized organization, DAO, that is governed by the token holders. So not a commercial business, but you want to issue a token and you want to have a decentralized organization, but you still want to have a legal personality that is able to employ someone, to sign contracts, to invest. That is the way to go. And in 2017, everyone was setting up foundations, but then we realized that this is very complex. So it's very expensive, there is a lot of regulation. So more and more DeFi projects and DAOs have started to use association. It's a very flexible, simple setup that you can quickly set up. It can be set up within 2 days, and then you can start to run your business. Of course, opening a bank account might then be more difficult, but at least a legal entity you can set up very, very easily. So this is the first question that you have to ask yourself: what kind of entity makes sense for my business? Then I would like to also give you a short overview of what kind of taxes we have in Switzerland. Most important, probably the income tax. It's based on the profit that you make. You pay between 11 to 20%. This is for corporations. For associations, it's even a bit lower. So it can be as low as 8.5% in the canton of Zug. So, for example, Zug is 11, Zurich is almost 20. So this is the difference when you choose where you want to incorporate. If you come from abroad, you might be very flexible. You say, okay, I go to Zug, it doesn't matter. When you have employees, you might want to go to Zurich because all your developers are living in Zurich and they don't want to go to Zug to work. So it's not only a tax question, it's also a question of operations, what makes sense in your case. We also have wealth tax. That is something that every country has. That every year you have to pay a tax on your net wealth. So also the companies, on their equity, they have to pay a tax. It's not extremely high, but still, if you don't make any profit, you will still have to pay. One of the most difficult taxes in Switzerland is the withholding tax. When you distribute dividends abroad, it's up to 35% tax on that dividend. So that is difficult if you have a lot of anonymous shareholders, for example, that will not get the withholding tax back. If you are a Korean company, for example, and you have a subsidiary in Switzerland, then you can apply the double tax treaty. So that is not a big issue. You know, the double tax treaty with Korea reduces the withholding tax to 10%. But you cannot use a Swiss company if you are owned by a Cayman Island investment fund. That doesn't work because of the withholding tax. We have a stamp duty of 1% when you create new equity in Switzerland. Normally it's not a problem, it's not very high, and we can often find a way to get an exemption. There is, for example, an exemption for the first 1 million that you put into Switzerland. So it's not a big deal. We have Securities Transfer Tax, which is when you want to trade in securities. For example, if you are a bank or an exchange in Switzerland, you have this transfer tax. It can be a problem, but for most crypto businesses, it's not really an issue because they are not trading with traditional securities or with security tokens. Because first of all, you would need a license. And a point that we'll explain a bit more is the Swiss VAT, value-added tax. It is only 7.7%, but it's very important because it's on the turnover. It's not on your profits. So even if you have zero profit, if you make a lot of turnover, and we will discuss how that applies to NFTs and other tokens, they can be subject to VAT. So we need to be very careful when we're structuring the business in Switzerland that we're not ending up paying a lot of VAT without even making 1 franc of profit. So VAT is a very important tax for crypto businesses. Then a question also gets asked of, if I want to set up a company in Switzerland, how much substance do I need? Do I need to rent an office? Do I need to hire 5 people? You know, for Switzerland, you don't need a lot. The only thing you need is 1 director that can put signature on the paper that needs to live in Switzerland. You can rent or you can hire a person in Switzerland to do that for maybe 6,000 francs per year, maybe 8,000. So it's not very difficult. You have no need for physical office. It's just an address that you need where someone takes your mail. You don't have audit requirements. You don't need to file your annual accounts publicly. Of course, you need to file a tax return every year, so it's a bit of costs. But it's really not a lot. The bigger question is, well, if every one of your business is sitting here in Korea, and you have only a letterbox in Switzerland, will the Korean tax authorities accept that? You know? If all the decisions are made in Korea and you just have 1 guy signing the paper in Switzerland, it's probably not going to work. So you probably still have to pay everything in Korea, and maybe you are even subject to Korean regulation. So you need to discuss with your local tax advisor how much functions and people do we actually need so that Korea will be accepting the Swiss entity abroad. Often people, they think you can just set up a company and put all their money in and it's safe, but it's not necessarily safe. But it's mostly a Korean question and not a Swiss. Now, I want to give you a couple of points on Swiss corporate tax rules that are specific to crypto. A company in Switzerland, it has every year has to file a tax return, but for a company it's very simple. It's basically the profit from the financial statement. If the financial statement is prepared according to the rules, in the end there will be a profit, and you multiply it with the tax rate. So you could say it's simple, right? So for Switzerland, the accounting law is extremely important for corporation tax. Everything is taxed at the same rate for companies. So you don't have to distinguish between capital gains or staking income or NFT, it doesn't matter. Everything is the same tax rate for a specific company. But the Swiss accounting system is a bit special compared to other countries. We don't have true and fair view. We have a very cautious accounting principle, which is nice for crypto. So for example, if you have a company that invests into tokens, you're not required to market the token every time. So not every year you have to increase the value if the value is going up. You can choose to put your token always at the same price, at the price that you want. Of course, if the token is going down, then you have to adjust the value because you cannot show a value that is too high. It's called an impairment. So let's assume this token is fluctuating, the Bitcoin. You buy it here, you can keep it, and then you see, oh, it dropped. So you have to put an impairment, and then you can keep it. So it's not required to put it at market value until the time when you sell it. Then, of course, you have to recognize the profit. So this is a basic principle that is very important because it's also relevant for tax. You don't have to pay tax at the company level until you sell the tokens. Now, the question is, what happens when you do staking? Staking has become a very profitable industry, mining and staking for Swiss companies. When they own tokens, of course they want to stake them to get more money. And this is a question that is not completely solved in Switzerland. There are accounting experts that say you need to account for the staking. When the token is coming in, you put a value and you put it at that value in your accounting. There is other experts that say no, it is like you produce the token yourself, and if you produce something yourself, you don't value it until the time when you sell it. So we are currently have some big companies that are filing their tax return based on the cost accounting. So they say, we only pay tax once we sell the token from staking. We are not sure if the tax authorities will accept it. We had a couple of meetings with them, and we disagreed in the end. So we said, let's agree to friendly disagree, and we will file the tax return, and then maybe in 1 or 2 years we will know more. So this is, for example, a question that is not solved in Switzerland, but it is currently being discussed. Another very important thing is if you want to sell a token from Switzerland. A lot of companies in 2017 until now have done ICOs, STOs, NFT sales. The problem is when you sell a token, you would have a massive gain in the first year when you sell, and then all the rest, you are spending the money for development of the platform, blockchain solution or an NFT platform, anything, and you would make losses. So you have to pay tax here and then losses. So that would not be very good for the company. So what the tax authorities came up is that instead we can book a provision. When we do the ICO, we book a provision for the future development, and we will release that provision in the next years. And the only thing that tax authorities ask for is a 5% margin on the cost. So in year one you spend 1 million Swiss francs on development, you pay and you recognize an income of 5%, that would be 50,000 Swiss francs, and on that you pay maybe 10% profit. So you can smoothen your income tax over the next years instead of paying everything in year one. And this has been a very helpful system that many companies, many foundations, many associations, but also corporate, commercial companies have been able to use. Leads to a very attractive taxation. I think these are kind of the most important rules when you speak about crypto in the corporate tax return. But as I said, equally important is the value-added tax. The value-added tax system in Switzerland works a bit like in the European Union. So whenever you sell a good to someone or a service, you have to charge 7.7% VAT. A company that sends you an invoice will also charge 7.7%. But you can get the 7.7% back. So it's only charged once in the end at the very end. So basically all goods and services, if they're sold within Switzerland, are subject to VAT. There is a couple of exemptions, healthcare, insurance, financial industry, education, that are not taxed. And of course something that you cannot use like money and not consume, this is also exempt from VAT. Now how does that apply to crypto? The tax authorities, they look at the tokens differently. So for a payment token, they say, well, a payment token is basically like a currency. So we also want to treat it like a currency for VAT purpose. So there is no VAT on money. There is also no VAT on Bitcoin and Ethereum. When you have a utility token, it's normally a service that you're selling. So they say, okay, for VAT purpose, we also want to tax it like a service. So normally there is VAT on a utility token, unless the utility is exempt, is a healthcare utility, is from cultural activity, or is financial service utility, then it might be exempt. And the third one would be if it's an asset token, then it's taxed like a security. Security are exempt for VAT. So, as in the regulatory world, it doesn't really matter whether it's crypto or not. You try to look at it, what does it represent in the old world? The same for NFTs. It depends what is the NFT. Is it digital art? It will be taxed as a service, like digital art would be. Is it a gaming item? It's a service. Is it real estate? It will be taxed as real estate. So there is no room for NFT. You need to look at the NFT, what it represents, and then you can make an assessment. So important to understand, if you transfer utility token from one to the other, there will be 7.7% VAT on it. So this can be an issue. For example, you have an employee in Switzerland, you have a company in Switzerland, and you want to pay the salary with the utility token. It's not only the salary tax that you pay, but it's also the VAT, because you're solving the utility token against labor. So we always need to be very careful with VAT in crypto. The same is if you buy utility tokens from abroad. So you buy from your, maybe from your Korean head office, you buy utility token. Then you have to charge import VAT, 7.7%. And you buy utility tokens from a foreign exchange, also 7.7% VAT. If you're exporting it, actually here the arrow goes in the wrong direction, it should be going to Korea. When you're exporting it, there is no VAT because the service is provided in the export country. You need to check with the Korean system whether there is any import tax. So in general, VAT has become a big topic in crypto that we need to always be careful. Now, I would like to summarize these topics and give you a real life example of a type of question that often clients come and say, hey, we are a team, say like there's a team from developers from Korea, they want to establish an NFT platform and they would like to do it in Switzerland. So what are the tax and legal considerations that we are doing? The first question that we always ask in a workshop is, do you want to do this project as a commercial business? Do you as a team want to earn money and distribute dividends? Then you have to go with a company. Do you want to have a token-based economy, a decentralized autonomous organization that is governed by a governance token, and you only benefit as developers because you own tokens by yourself? Then I would recommend a membership-based structure like an association. So for this project, if they want to build an NFT platform that is governed by a governance token, we would recommend to go with an association. The second question that we address is how do we put up the governance of this entity? First, you need to decide an association in its members. So we need to decide who's going to be the member. And I would recommend that not everyone from the Korean team would be a member because it sounds like it is very centralized around Korea. So the recommendation would be to have already in the membership, this is kind of like the shareholder level for the association, to have already diversified people. But even more important is who do we put in the board? Who is running the daily operations of the association? And definitely we don't want to have a majority of Korean residents. I mean, also not a majority of US residents in any other country. We don't want to have a majority of any other countries. Preferably we have one person from Switzerland, maybe we will have one person from Korea, and then let's find another person from the UK, from Germany, from France. It does not really matter. But we don't want to have a concentration of power in one country outside of Switzerland because we don't want to have the company become managed from another country. Then next, we would look at the business model of this platform. Say, what are you actually doing? What are the flows? What kind of tokens are you selling? What are you importing, exporting? What is their VAT treatment? Are we sure that all makes sense? We're not losing too much money on VAT. Can we change the token maybe a little bit to get better VAT treatment? Sometimes that works. You leave away a little functionality of the token and then already it's a different token. The second question is the income tax. Can we apply 5% margin taxation? Does it fulfill the requirements? Do we make sure that we do not pay too much income tax in the first year where we do the fundraising? And very important question that we need to solve early, how do we get the token to the founders? Because often people think well, I'm a founder, the token is value 0, I just get 100 million of token for free. But many countries don't see it like 0 value. They would say, well, this is already valuable, it's a salary, you have to pay tax on it. We need to discuss, what would the vesting look like of these tokens, what impact does it have for a tax perspective. So we spend normally a bit of time of designing the compensation of the team and the founders, because this can give very complex social security, tax questions, and income tax questions for the founders. And the last point, and this is technically probably the most complex, is does the Swiss Association have to pay tax for the platform? You can imagine you develop a decentralized NFT platform. So who is that platform? Is that the Swiss Association? Is that a decentralized entity? Is that a nothing? The tax authorities cannot really deal with the nothing, right? So in Switzerland, the VAT authorities often say, well, as long as there is no other legal entity that is responsible for the platform, you as a developer in Switzerland remain responsible. So that means that they could ask you to pay VAT on the revenues that the platform is making. Maybe that's a problem, maybe not, but we need to be aware of this to have the right processes to file a tax return properly. So this is an important part of the analysis, is to look at this decentralized platform. Is it really decentralized enough? Or does the team still hold the keys for the token? Does it still have control over the platform, and it still might be liable to tax? Just to give you an overview of how this such a settlement project to bring a company in Switzerland typically works. Normally we start with a workshop. So we put the founder team and the lawyer and the tax expert together for like 2 hours or more to go through all these topics, to see what is the business purpose, what they want to achieve, and come up with a proper solution. To go through all these questions that I mentioned, plus of course all the regulatory questions. Does your business model require a license? Do you have to have people in Switzerland? Do you have to register with SRO? Everything like this. So we have set the basis. And then we split. We go in regulatory analysis, so the regulatory lawyer goes in parallel, does a regulatory analysis, maybe goes to the regulator FINMA to get a license. The tax people, they start to plan the founder token, they do the VAT analysis, the corporate tax analysis, and then you create a legal entity. You draft all the agreements with investors, with employees, the token sale agreement, so everything is running. So this is normally how a project would work. It takes a couple of months. I put in here total cost 30,000 to 50,000. Of course, this is for a simple business. If your business requires a license, then of course it's more expensive, because already Jörg's cost will probably be more than that. So it really depends on the project, but I would say for a small project that just needs normal tax rulings and maybe a FINMA no action letter and the company incorporated, that would be the starting cost of 30,000 to 50,000 that you can do in this one. So I hope to give you a bit of an insight of how we do tax companies and what kind of struggles they have. So it's well developed, the system, but it's not that you have no taxes. So you still have to be very careful when you do business. You have to plan everything properly, and you might still end up paying a bit of tax, but compared to many other countries, is much lower, and it's especially much clearer. So I'm happy then to take questions in the Q&A and also later in the lunch. That's it from my side. Thank you so much.